Hello, my name's David Seaman, and this is the Three Lions Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions Podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. Hope I find you well. If you are new to the show, hello there, welcome along. If you're a regular, as always, hello to you too. You'll know that this is a show that, well, basically looks at our England football team, be it the senior men, the Lionesses, the youth sides. It's one that will on occasions talk to players, it will talk to fans. It's just generally England. The show is on all the usual social media platforms. Just search Three Lions Podcast, give it a follow. If you'd like to get in touch, you can do through those, or you can email me, threelionspodcast@gmail.com. You might have an idea for the show. Let me know. Always happy to have a chat. And sometimes I like to take a look at specific games from the past. And here we are, as this one is one of those. At the time of recording, I'm going back 41 years to a game, well, one that we've probably all heard about for the one same reason. It's Brazil against England, the 10th of June 1984. That reason? Well, it was John Barnes' solo goal. But what else do you know about it? Me, personally, well, I'd just turned 6 years old at the time, so in all honesty, I wasn't aware of it at all. It was a Sunday when Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Two Tribes replaced Wham's Wake Me Up Before You Go Go at the top of the UK singles charts. The first edition of Crime Watch UK had just been aired on BBC One 3 days before. The miners' strike was, well, it was soon to happen as 20 coal mines were closed across the country. The Los Angeles Summer Olympics, well, that would happen a month later, where Seb Coe and Daley Thompson, well, they would become household names. In fact, that was something Torvill and Dean were becoming used to after winning gold at the Winter Olympics earlier in the year. It never occurred to me that the Winter and the Summer Games used to be in the same year. I've since found out it was like that up until 1992. But back to the football and back to that game. This wasn't a Brazil team full of superstars that we tend to associate with the Seleção. They'd been knocked out of the 1982 World Cup by eventual winners Italy in the second round group stage match. One that many describe as being one of the greatest ever games. The following year of 1983, well, they were runners-up to Uruguay in the Copa America final, of which was the last to be played over 2 legs. And in the run-up to this particular game, England, well, they'd been on a disastrous run of results. 1984 had seen them lose to France in Paris, Wales in Wrexham, the USSR at Wembley, and they'd drawn with Scotland at Hampden after being behind. In fact, their only win had come against Northern Ireland in April, Tony Woodcock getting the only goal of the game. But this tour was the first to this part of the world since 1977. It was put together following the failure to qualify for the French Euros, which in fact begin 2 days after this game. And the feeling towards manager Bobby Robson, well, it wasn't particularly positive. And with qualification starting for the 86 World Cup very soon, results were going to need to change for him to seriously keep his position. And this tour would also take in Uruguay and Chile. But the first game was this, against Brazil at the Maracanã Stadium, Rio de Janeiro. Famously one of the biggest stadiums of the time. It would cater for up to 150,000. This was its original incarnation. There's a bowl of a stadium with a large dot matrix like scoreboard at each end. And much like Wembley, its old carcass was taken down and a new modern day stadium built in its place. In this case, it was going to be ready for the 2014 World Cup. But back to 1984, and Brazil hadn't lost at the Maracanã for 27 years. Today though, there were only 56,000 in attendance, and it was Sunday, the 10th of June, the game kicking off at 4:15 local time, 8:15 in the evening, British summer time. It was England's 590th official match, and it was actually a celebration of the CBF, or the Brazilian FA's, 75th anniversary. Now, the two sides hadn't met since Brazil visited Wembley in 1981 in a friendly. They came away with a 1-0 win thanks to a goal from Zico. This, though, was the 13th meeting between the two sides. England had only won one of the 12 previous matches. That was the first in 1956 at Wembley. They won it 4-2. And of those previous 12 matches, Brazil had won 7 of them. England were led out by Brian Robson, and they took to the pitch in the slightly unusual combination of white home shirts mixed with white away shorts. And they had red socks too, all made by Umbro. Now, our starting lineup that day was Southampton's goalkeeper, Peter Shilton, right back, Mike Duxbury of Manchester United. Arsenal's Kenny Sansom was left back. There was a central defence pairing of Dave Watson from Norwich, who was making his England debut, alongside QPR's Terry Fenwick. We already mentioned Manchester United's Captain Marvel, Brian Robson, who was in midfield alongside his former teammate Ray Wilkins, who was now at AC Milan. On the right of midfield was Stoke City's Mark Chamberlain. On the left was Watford's John Barnes. And up front was Portsmouth's Mark Hateley and Arsenal's Tony Woodcock. On the bench was Chris Woods, Gary Stevens, Sammy Lee, David Armstrong and Clive Allen of QPR, who would also make his debut, coming on for Woodcock, and we'll hear from Allen in a short while. England would win 2-0 thanks to goals from John Barnes, who was just 20 at the time and earning his 10th cap, and the other goal came from Mark Hateley, who at the time was with Portsmouth of the 2nd Division, and Hateley was winning only his 2nd cap. And by pure chance, both Barnes and Hateley were born on the same day, 7th of November, just 2 years apart. Hateley in 61 and Barnes in 63, and both would score their first England goals. Now, the game kicked off and Brazil had a couple of moments in the first half, and it has to be said they also had a couple of players debuting, Assis and Zenon. So despite Brazil having some early opportunities, the first half was goalless until the 44th minute. The ITV footage is grainy, but it shows long-haired Hateley and Barnes, with the afro, combining for the first goal. Hateley controlling and passing it out wide left to Barnes from the middle of the pitch. Barnes brings it down on his chest, down to the ground and drives forward at an angle towards and into the penalty box. He passes 6 static Brazilians in gold shirts, blue shorts and white socks, before tucking it past Roberto Costa, all in blue, who had dived the wrong way. 11 touches, 8 seconds, 1-0.
Very quickly when things don't go well, but it's still 0-0, coming towards half-time. Hateley for England. That's a good ball there for Barnes. Now can he take Leandro? John Barnes now. It might go all the way for England. Barnes! He scored! And England, amazingly, are into the lead. Right on half-time. His first goal for England, and what a place to get it. John Barnes, that long, amazing dribble. And Barnes here in Rio has performed a miracle there. What a sight that was. Just look at it again. Through the entire Brazilian defence, with marvellous presence of mind, goes round the keeper. And England, sensationally, have just gone into the lead right on half-time with a goal by John Barnes.
In hindsight, for Barnes, it probably did him more harm than good. He had this goal hang heavy around his neck. Fans expected him to deliver in a similar vein every match. Although without wanting to take too much away from him and the goal, the Brazilian defending was awful. Barnes would go on to win 79 caps for England, scoring 10 times. But for many, he just didn't fulfil his potential that he showed after he'd moved to Liverpool from Watford. And it also has to be said he was the victim of some vile chants at the time. This is what Barnes said about the goal.
I don't remember much of the goal, and in fact, even when I do see it on television again, it's like having an out-of-body experience because I cannot remember doing that. There's a lot of fear involved in playing football. Apprehension, not fear, in not wanting to make a mistake. So if you do something good, you then want to pass it off to somebody else. So if they made a mistake, at least you look good. So therefore, after looking good and beating one player, I said, well, I'll pass the ball now, and then I would have looked good. Someone else is going to lose the ball because ultimately you do lose the ball, and whoever loses it feels a bit stupid. So after beating 3 players, I said, well, that's really it now, please. Let me just give the ball to someone else, and I've looked good. So till eventually, I was just in front of the goalkeeper. The Brazilians were shocked, and I suppose that's why they didn't tackle me, because they thought there's no way an Englishman is going to do this. So, let him try and do whatever he wants.
The second half began and 66 minutes were up, and England had a free kick just on the inside of their own half. Quickly taken by Ray Wilkins, who found Woodcock, who passed to Barnes, who crossed in long for Haitley to rise above the defender and head past the keeper for 2-0.
Wilkins, nasty challenge there by Renato, a free kick to England. Wilkins with it. Woodcock making himself available. Pearce there with him. Barnes also available. And he got his cross in well. And another one! And Haitley has made it 2! And Barnes provided that one.
England held on. They had beaten Brazil for the first time since 1956, the days of Billy Wright, Stanley Matthews and Johnny Haynes. And this was a year before Bobby Robson would make his England playing debut.
Final whistle. England have won it. The first time they've won here in the Maracanã Stadium. The first time they've beaten Brazil in 28 years. And against all the odds, they've done it here in 1984. With a stupendous goal by John Barnes right on half-time. A fine header by Mark Haitley in the second half. And a really excellent all-round team performance, which I'm sure has delighted everybody at home. Let me hand you back then to Jim Rosenthal, Jimmy Greaves and Ian St John with the joyous news. Brazil 0, England 2.
The following morning, AC Milan contacted their player, Ray Wilkins, and asked him if he would ask Haitley if he wanted to join them. And he would, 14 days later on the 28th of June, for £1 million. Portsmouth to AC Milan. The old English second division to the Italian Serie A. An English naval hub for a growing, fashionable city. He became an icon for the Rossoneri. He was only 21. John Barnes would have to wait a little longer before his move to Liverpool. Now, Clive Allen was 23 years old at the time. He'd just finished the season playing for QPR, but would shortly join Tottenham for $700,000. I spoke with him for episode 71 of the podcast, and these were his memories of the time.
To experience what it meant playing for the under-21s.
Well, when it did finally come, you were playing at QPR, and it came as an England tour, and I guess, me personally, Wembley would obviously be a great place to start, but you started somewhere, not at Wembley, but somewhere equally as great, didn't you?
Well, it's quite remarkable. Everybody knows my England debut, and when I say to people, tell me who it was, And they say, no, I can't remember. And I say, I only have to say one name, and that's John Barnes. And they go, no, really? So I said, yes, really. Obviously, everybody remembers the memorable goal that John Barnes scored in American Art in Brazil. I was on the bench at that moment when he run through an amazing run, incredible goal. And then I came on for Tony Woodcock to win my first England cap in the American Art with England winning 2-0. So a quite unbelievable start. As you rightly say, I think every schoolboy's dream is to play at Wembley for England. But for me to make my debut in the American Art against Brazil was something quite extraordinary.
Now, reading in your book, which we'll get on to, you said that the American Art was a bit of a dilapidated place. Was that right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was very run down. It was aging, crumbling, but it still had a magic. There was something magical about it. It wasn't the greatest surface to play football on either. But we obviously performed well that night. First time ever that England had won in Brazil against Brazil. So, it was quite a spectacular start to my England career.
Have you been back since to the new one?
No, I haven't actually. No, I haven't been back to Brazil. So, I've fond memories of our time in Rio, but no, I haven't been back to the renovated American Art.
So we say this is
As for England and Robson, well, following the disappointment of not qualifying for the French Euros, they would soon be targeting the Mexico World Cup. Robson's job wasn't 100% safe. The tabloids still found column inches to thrust the knife at him. But the side moved on to Montevideo to play Uruguay, who would win 2-0, and then on to Santiago to face Chile, in a totally one-sided game that England dominated, but somehow remained goalless. A win, a draw and a defeat on a tour that took in 3 countries and all crammed in within 7 days. All in all, not too bad. England would play East Germany in September before starting the journey to Mexico the following month. But that win in Brazil had certainly been a turning point in the team's confidence and that of some of the players. Who knows what may have happened had it not have been the night of John Barnes and Mark Haitley. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'd like to acknowledge both England Football Online and England Stats, both great England-related websites with loads of information that I often scour when putting together episodes. Great sources of information. If you have enjoyed it, there are plenty of previous episodes that you can find in the back catalogue. Just give it a search, see what takes your fancy. And as I said at the beginning, you can get in touch either through the social media pages, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube as well. Or you can ping me an email, 3lionspodcast@gmail.com. So let's leave it there. Thank you very much for listening. I will be back with you soon with some more England related content. So until then, take care of yourselves. Cheers.
Jimmy Greaves. Jimmy, just evaluate that result for us.
Well, it's one of the great England wins. It's got to be. You cannot go to a place like the Maracanã in front of 150,000 people against any Brazilian team. Admittedly, I think they were a very poor Brazilian team. But taking all that aside, it goes down as one of the great wins of all time.
Jimmy, Ian, thank you both very much indeed. Well, a magnificent night really for England over there in Rio. England beating Brazil for the very first time over there and getting our South American tour off to a great start. I hope you've enjoyed the game. Another outstanding night for England, for Hateley and Barnes. Bye-bye.